Welcome to the Roost. It can be hard to get a TTRPG game going, especially if you don't have a GM or if you want to GM but have never done it before. If you don't want to use a module or are struggling with writer's block, coming up with a setting or a plot hook can be difficult. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple ways to inspire yourself and build a setting right now. Let's get to it. The first inspiration I'm going to explore is a map. Sometimes you just need to visualize the land or the setting. There are a couple ways to do this. You could turn to the internet, always a useful tool. Sometimes I like to use Google Maps for a continental outline or to zoom in to identify political borders and use those lines to create a map. Or sometimes I turn to a terrain map for inspiration of geographical features. That could be fun. There are also so many TTRPG cartographers out there that have Patreons and shops to gain access to battle, city, and world maps you can use in your own campaign, and many of them offer free versions as well. The way I came up with my homebrew setting, the Tri-Seas, is by just randomly sketching a few lines and connecting them into random shapes. And then I turned that sketch on physical paper into a digital, more formal shape later. But the way I'm going to try today for this random setting is to use my dice. I saw this on Pinterest or Tumblr at some point, and I had wanted to try it for myself for a long time, so we're going to roll some random dice from my dice bag on a piece of paper, trace around them to create the land area, and assign the different dice different values that translate into a map. So each die type is a different geographic feature. D4s will be a village, D6 will be a major city, D8s will be a lake, river, or other sort of water feature, D10s will be a mountain, D12s will be desert, and D20s will be wooded areas. As you can see in this example, I already have a continent, and as I was labeling each section with the geographic features for my dice rolls, I already had ideas for fantastical things that could be happening in this world. This archipelago in the south is full of atolls and hidden pools that the local people believe grant true visions to the pure of heart. Crater Isle to the west has a giant pit that spawns monsters, and legend says contains a portal to the otherworld, but no one has tread there in hundreds of years. The mountains in the south of the main continent, which I called the Gath Range, are dangerous, but something drove people to cross that range a long time ago. Now, the Elgathnor, or those who crossed Gath, live in an eponymous city on the southern coast. Lake Vispa in the west is inhabited by Fae, who run a fabulous resort there. But be wary, for those who come to stay rarely ever leave. Think Lotus Casino from Percy Jackson. The two towns in the center of the continent had a falling out a long time ago, and now are split into North and South Prism. That rift stems from some long-standing tradition to do with this island to the northwest, which I later dubbed the Isle of the Forsaken. I thought it would be cool to have the island separated not by the sea, but rather by a deep, wide valley with walls that keep the ocean out. And finally, the north side of the continent has a frozen lake called the Heart of the Gods by the locals that provides both physical and spiritual sustenance to them. And there it is. With just a few dice rolls, I have an entire world as my playground. I may end up using this for a Daggerheart campaign sometime soon. I'm really, really liking the way it turned out in both the paper copy and the digital copy. The next inspiration I'm going to use to kind of kickstart my writer's block are some random tables. I'm going to look up some random tables and roll some dice to create a setting, including environment, some cultural markers, landmarks, and historical events. The best part about random tables is that you can apply these as broadly or as narrowly as you want. Maybe you want to build out a unique city in your setting, but are stumped in making it stand out from other places in your world. Or maybe you're starting on a brand new world and want to build out the broader setting, the continent, the world, rather than just the city or town. Whatever you want to do, random tables can not only provide some useful options, but can inspire your own ideas and help eliminate that writer's block. So Orcish Blade has this fantastic set of random tables for world building. You can find it on Reddit and in this compendium. So I'm going to start broad with their world tables and get narrower to their continent and nation tables, which cover everything from size and climate to magic, technology, religion, and more. So I'm going to roll up a world. For the size, let's go with this 8. This is a minuscule world. The average person can get from one side to the other. There's a D12 for climate. I rolled a 7, so this is a bipolar world. A single day and night cycle can go from extremely hot to extremely cold. With such a small world, I'm just going to choose the number here that makes the most sense for land masses, which is a single land mass with no ocean to speak of. So we have one giant continent, essentially, for this world. Or one minuscule continent. I rolled that magic and technology are both really common, so I'm thinking of a steampunk sort of world with arcanotech and all sorts of fun gadgets. And I rolled a nat 20 for the unique characteristic, which is that no one lives after attaining adulthood. That's a bit of a weird one, so I'm going to put it on pause until I roll a few more characteristics, but I'm thinking that there's some sort of power or entity that is causing this to happen. And I'm leaning towards a very loose interpretation of the word lives. I mean, can you call capitalism really living? 9 out of 10 adults polled answered no. It's me. I'm adults. Anyway, for this D8, the world is dominated by a pair of large rival empires. I like the idea of splitting the bipolar climate into these empires. So maybe we have a steamy rainforest jungle and a freezing mountain or tundra. And those are the two rivalries. For this cataclysm that faced the world in the past, I rolled a 5, which is an advanced civilization that destroyed their own planet, left only what you can see. So maybe that's why the world is so tiny. This is the only part that survived that destruction. Like a crumb of a world that fell apart, and the remnant of life here developed eventually into these empires. Kind of similarly and related, the world was created by a young defiant god attempting to create something unheard of. So maybe that was what sparked the cataclysm, and now that god's offspring, or even like demigods, have inherited this leftover crumb of a world. But those beings, those powerful beings, have some sort of connection to the old world. That's a lot for a world, so let's get into some more details with the continent. We know a lot of this already, so if I hadn't already filled out the world and I was just looking for a continent, I would use a lot more of these tables. But I do want to roll on one of them, so I'm going to skip down to this D20 list of unique characteristics. With a 4, it's home to the tallest mountain in the world. And we know already that that's the biome for one of the empires, so that fits really well as well. There are a couple other tables, but I want to get into these empires, so I'm going to look at the nation tables here. I'm going to roll mostly for the Jungle Empire and just build that out for now. With a 4, this is a young civilization, and the elderly, which I will remind you still exist, even though they're not really living, can still remember when it was formed. So maybe the elders, instead of being killed or being completely wiped out as soon as, they turn 18, maybe the elders are actually being captured and used by a powerful entity left over from the old world, these demigods. And maybe that entity is actually the cause for the empires pitting themselves against each other and creating this rivalry. Maybe they've instituted a sort of like Hunger Games-esque situation where the elders of the losing nation are reaped for some unknown purpose. Could be slave labor, could be food, or a sacrifice for the demigods. I'm not sure yet, but that's kind of where I'm at with that idea. For the next table is a political system. I rolled a republic for the jungle folks, and I am going to roll for the mountain folks on this one, and I got an uncoordinated tribal system, which makes a lot of sense. It's hard for the jungle folks in this situation to invade the mountains because of the terrain and the hazards that they pose, and the mountain people are too uncoordinated and spread out to make a true strike against the jungle, hence why they're in this kind of never-ending cycle of rivalry. Economically speaking, the Jungle Empire focuses on hunting and gathering. Okay, that makes some sense. And the ruler is corporations, but I'm going to again interpret this loosely and say maybe that there are factions that power different sections of the nation, almost like unions. So there's someone that represents the hunter-gatherers, which I think makes a lot of sense given the republic type of government. A unique characteristic for this nation is a 4. It's controlled by a secret society pulling the strings. So maybe it's not known that the demigods are pitting the nations against each other. They're just the benefactor or the beneficiary. So maybe they've actually infiltrated one of the empires, the Jungle Empire, to orchestrate the rivalry with the mountain people. And they use the threat of themselves, those reaping demigods, to keep both empires willing to play along with this Hunger Games lottery or competition or whatever it ends up being. I haven't really fully fleshed that out yet. And if they don't, the threat is that the demigods are powerful enough to wipe them out completely if they don't cooperate. Whether that's actually true is up to me as the GM. It's probably not true, but I'm not going to tell my players that. That's something for them to discover along the way. And that could really be the plot of a one-shot or the campaign. The players discover this truth that the Jungle Empire is actually ruled by these demigods, and they were all living in this constructed simulation by the demigods. And you can really play into the Arcanotech, into the steampunk, into the gadgetry, and make it really like techie simulacrum simulation sort of thing. Or you can play really more into the magic side of things and say, you know, this demigod is hugely powerful and magical, and maybe even there's some undue influence going on. And the plot of the campaign is that the players discover that truth and are forced to confront the demigods or flee to get help and take on the whole corrupt system. Right. I'm going to roll on these last couple of tables. For religion, I rolled that all are accepted, though some are encouraged. Again, probably by the demigods imposing systems that keep the jungle people unknowingly subjugated. And for the notable law, I rolled a 2, which is magic is banned, but I already know that's not true of this world. In fact, magic is very commonplace. So I'm going to re-roll, which is the beauty of a random table. That and just being able to pick if I don't want to roll. I rolled a 48, which is money lending is illegal, which I think adds a little bit of interesting options here, just in terms of maybe the mob or the shadier sides of things. So that's our worlds and our nations, with the jungle a little bit more fleshed out than the mountains. But I want to get to these other random tables that Orcish Blade has for encounters and landscapes. This compendium has so many options for nearly any environment you can think of. There are locations, landmarks, features, historical contexts, odd plants and other sightings, encounters, NPCs you can find, and so much more. I'm looking at the jungle here and I like this hermit idea. So maybe there are some outcasts in the jungle nation that live on the edges of society or civilization. Maybe a rebellion or a resistance or even a cult. I like the idea that these outlaws or outcasts have discovered some ancient remnants from the old world about the demigods' history and their predecessor who destroyed the previous world. And because of that, they recognize the demigod's hand in the oppression of the jungle and mountain people, this kind of arbitrary, artificial rivalry. But they're probably just in the beginning stages of gathering their resources and undermining the demigods. So again, how that plays into your campaign, what aid they can offer the players. Maybe they act as sort of a guild and the players join the outcasts and act on missions that the guild, that the cult gives them. There's a lot of possibility here. Or the way players are, maybe it's just a passing pit stop. They get some information from them and they go on their way and determine their own destiny and how they want to address the situation. Because really, who can tell what players are going to do at any given moment? But just like that, with some random tables, we have a one-shot or campaign. Finally, I'm going to show you some of my favorite random generators that I use to inspire my settings. Links in the description below. Just like random tables, you can keep regenerating results or re-rolling results until you find something that strikes your fancy, or you can pick and choose pieces from different results and combine them into something that works for you and your game. As far as I'm aware, none of these that I'm going to show you use generative AI, but if I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments. Starting with map generators, I've used Watabu's ProcGen Arcana map generators, particularly the city generator here. With this site, if you right-click, you can find all sorts of ways to edit and adjust and regenerate the map, re-rolling the geometry, warping aspects to change the layout, re-rolling names of different districts, and even adjusting the design for better legibility and use in your games. In this example, I really like the name Witch's Mire and Silkshade, so maybe I just take those names and incorporate them into my setting. As a note, Watabos also has world maps, dungeon generators, and even just house generators, so you can see the different floors of a dwelling. Really helpful for creating a mansion or a castle. The dungeon maps also provide possible obstacles, treasure, and enemies. Roll for Fantasy is something I've used as a name generator in pretty much every game I've run, but I've never used the map generator function, and it seems a little complicated, but maybe it works better for you, so check it out, let me know if it works. Wizard Dawn is a downloadable application that I've never used, so I can't recommend or not recommend it. If you know anything about it, at me and tell me about it on Blue Sky. Asgar's fantasy map generator I have used, and while it has cool political and geographical maps and can be really detailed, it isn't always the most user-friendly. Once you figure out what you're looking for, it has a lot of potential to help you keep track of your world, and you can customize it with some time and effort. And if the level of detail starts to get intimidating, you can just use this as inspiration. If all you take from it is one city name, then the generator has done its job. I like it, it's useful, I don't use it very often. Oscar Stahlberg's city generator is based on real-life urban planning. You can just click and city blocks pop up. You can connect the pieces, re-click to redesign sections. The controls are a little finicky and the options are pretty limited, but for a quick city design, it's a useful shortcut. And a lot of these generators in general are just good for inspiration. If you ever get stuck and you need something to kind of jumpstart your brain, this is a good place to go. And finally, my favorite and go-to generator, Donjon. They have generators for pretty much everything, from maps to shops and treasure hoards to NPCs and more. They have some generators specific to different systems like D&D and Blade Runner, but they also have just general fantasy generators for seemingly everything. Calendars and world maps and treasure hoards and magical items, campaign hooks and adventures, dungeons, inns and magic shops, and so much more. They give you so much information, from descriptions of locations and NPCs, to plot points and suggestions for how to run the adventure, the size and name of towns and shops, traits and characteristics of shopkeepers and innkeepers. It's incredible. There is just so much content here and so much potential. I could run a campaign solely using these generators as my prep work, sourcing all of the shops, all of the magic items, all of the treasure, all of the campaign hooks and plot points. I could do it completely just using this generator, and maybe I will one day. While most of these tools are helpful in preparation for your games, there are also customizable aspects to these tools, so you can really use them in your games, like this campaign tracker, for example. Basically, if you're struggling to come up with something for your world, odds are there's a Donjon generator here that you can use for inspiration, and I hope it works for you the same way it has for me. So between the world map, the random tables, and the myriad of map, city, encounter, dungeon, and locale generators, there is something for everyone who is experiencing writer's block or doesn't know what adventure they want to run. I hope this video helps inspire your next TTRPG game, and if you know of any other generators or good random tables that you use in your games, tell me about them in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one.